Are we live? We are live. I think we're live, RG.
Yeah, we're live.
We're live. We're having a conversation, and we actually didn't realize that we were live. So
So if
welcome,
you've just tuned in,
welcome everyone, and welcome Andrew. So lovely to
yeah.
see you again.
Hey, you know when you go out for a coffee with a friend, right?
Yeah.
And you're having this conversation, and the people on the next table are having a better conversation than the one you're having, and you're sort of eavesdropping in on a great conversation. Well, that's what the start of the show was like.
I know. I
This
don't
is
know.
we we rehearsed it. This is what we did. Yeah,
I
this
know.
is what we do.
And I don't know whether or not, I don't know how long it was live for, so I'm not sure how much the audience were listening to. But, Andrew and I started these lives close to 12 months ago, Andrew. And the reason that
Wow.
you're over in the UK, I'm here in
Mm,
Australia. We both do a lot of leadership work. We both do a lot of coaching
mm,
and mentoring. And we really realized that there were so many people out there that were struggling with leadership at different times, at different stages throughout their career.
mm,
And we thought, why not just get on every fortnight and really start to talk about some things that we're seeing, not only in leadership, but in business. And sometimes we even float over to sales because we work in that industry as well.
mm,
So today I know that what you're noticing really prevalent right now is that how leaders are adapting to different life cycles or business cycles within their business. So over to
mm,
you.
mm.
Talk us through some of those 5 stages and what you're seeing.
Yeah, this is sort of slightly different to the 5 stages of a business, right? Slightly different, ever so slightly. So for a bit of context, I do a thing called the Business Leadership Profile, which it's a tick and flick. We've all got assessment. We've got Myers-Briggs, we've got, Hogan, we've got that. But I created one from my university days, right? Because I found I was running a business and I thought, the tests that were out there, I thought they're not written by people who've run a business. So I thought I'd design my own, right? Okay. What I learned from that is that the test says, can you lead and what are the qualities of leader? And I think you just mentioned 26 competencies that leaders should have, right? Where did that come from? The 26
That's through
competencies?
a vast amount of research. So there's a lot of research out there that sits, and the number normally sits anywhere between 18 and around 26. And it says,
Yeah,
these are
yeah.
the different competencies and qualities that really
Mm,
great, successful leaders have. So,
mm, mm,
depending on the number depends on the
mm.
qualities and how many there are. But let's say 25, 26
26,
qualities that you need
26.
in order to be successful.
Well, the issue that I have with that, and I've had with that for a long, long time, it's good to know competencies. Like, for example, there's some that are you just can't argue with. You be honest,
Yes.
right? You've got to be
Transparency,
ethical,
visionary, yeah.
all that stuff, right? But the issue was that, and there's lots and lots of books that talk about the qualities, the 11 C's, the 5 F's, whatever it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
and if I just master those 11 C's, then I'll be a great leader, right?
Yes.
And so what I saw was there are people who they are good leaders, right? If you give them the test, they come up as, yeah, this person on paper is a good leader, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so like you, I've been coaching leaders, but also too I've been doing non-executive director work where it's not actually coaching in a sense that you're coaching someone, but you're in on a meeting and you're chairing a meeting and you see the different personalities of the management team, right? And what I started to see was there are certain stages that a business might be in
Yeah.
that over time I started to see they're highly predictable, right? And so it's probably best. I'm just going to share my screen with you, and then I guess because it's a lot easier for me to talk it through
Yes.
rather than
Visuals.
show you what it is rather than talk it through. So we'll just see if we can go work the magic of
Sharing the
here we go.
screen.
Yeah, sharing the screen, see if that works. Share, okay. Uh,
Coming
is it
up.
going? Is it coming up?
Coming, yep.
There we go. Can you see that?
Beautiful.
So if
We
I draw a
can.
square, yeah, awesome. Right. Okay. So we got a square there. You can see the square?
Yep.
Okay. So essentially what I call it, we'll do a star because it's a lot easier to run with, right? And the star is divided in two like that. So one of the things that I often see is you've got this great leader But the situation that they've got themselves into is it's a startup, right? So what you do as a leader in a startup is going to be very, very different than what you would do if you're a business leader trying to engineer a sale.
Yeah.
You got it? Or if you were trying to scale a sale. It's a very, very different way of leading because the circumstances or the situation that you're in demand different things of you as a leader, right?
For
And
sure.
then over here, a lot of times I'm working with businesses that have got a really good game and they're just trying to keep that game going. So they're just trying to sustain the levels of income, they're trying to sustain what they're working with, okay? But occasionally, what can happen is you get down here and we know that, okay, something's happened. We're a little off track. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll do that in red because it's sort of like the red zone here, where the job as a leader is you've got to realign what's happening. So you've been up here at this sustain level, and then something's happened where you've dropped the game in some way, shape, or you've got a challenge, and you've
Yes.
got to get back to that,
Yes.
right? Okay. And then probably the last one, which I'm working with a company at the moment, and the stage or the phase the cycle that they're in is a turnaround. They've actually this one's stamped urgent. It's like we need to get this happening really, really super quick. So in a sense, if you're somewhere between a startup or a sustain, then the cycle that you're going to be in is a growth cycle. So your leadership has got to be orientated towards growing that business. The conversation is going to be around growth. Does that make sense? If you're trying to
It
sustain.
does. It does. I'd probably also go into that from a qualities perspective to say, as a leader, you also need to be really visionary. You've got to make
Yeah.
sure that you are delegating, that you're not micromanaging, and that your communication is clear. So I'd say for leaders in this stage, it's really, really important to be really promoting that future vision.
Yeah, there it is. And you're on the money because in the sustained stage, it's not just keep it at the level it's at, but what would the next level look like if we could take that up a level, right? So definitely the future pacing or the visionary stuff is really important. And this is where you're building on really good leadership skills.
Yeah, some of the things that I really think about in this stage is really making sure that you're setting goals, that you're clear around your expectations, that you've got performance management in place, that you're consistent. So for this one is what we're trying to do is we've now moved up and we're now right now let's get making sure that we sustain where we are, and that's a different type of leader compared to
Totally.
the visionary.
Totally, yeah, yeah. So somewhere in there though, it still is a growth conversation because we're
For
sort of
sure.
saying,
That's the
you know,
goals, isn't it?
yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to sustain it, but we're trying to grow something in here. Okay. If you come down here where you drop below this line, right, and you've got to realign, in a sense, you're sort of having recovery conversations, or it's a recovery cycle.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're trying to get back to this. You're trying to recover that lost ground. Do you get it? So you're trying to move back into this above the line, up into this sustain mode up there, but you're trying to realign something. So realigning from when I see it is that if you were to look at your business and say, you've got to build an awareness that there's a need for change in something. You've got to innovate something. Change is now
This
on
is
the agenda.
change management, right? This is,
Yeah.
if we think about it from a leadership perspective, I actually see this as transformational change. This is
Yeah.
right. We're managing change. We're going to come up against people that are resistors. So, using, even if I think about with leaders that I'm coaching and developing, is the ADKAR model.
Yeah.
And that's a really great change model for that. So you're right. This realign is right. We need to move. We need to shift. We need to pivot. But you can only
Yeah.
do that as a leader if you lead through the change the right way.
And you were right, because the thing that you're going to run into that I see often is you run into denial where people don't think there's a
Yeah.
need for anything, right?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
and you run into these cultural norms and denial where they go, no, no, so in a sense, you've got to build that awareness that, yeah, no, actually change is needed. And in a sense, you've got to lead with a little bit more diplomacy, but the agenda here is to discover the what's working really well, but also to discover what isn't working so well, so you can move it back up towards this sustained part, right?
Yes,
Okay.
agree, agree.
Yeah. Okay. So in the turnaround one, if you're sort of caught between the realign and the turnaround one, right? And this is the one that I've been dealing with the client just recently. You're in a crisis cycle.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So that you've got to recognize that actually we've got a real crisis on our hands because this here is stamped really sort of urgent. We've got to move it that way and then move it that way, right?
Yeah.
But it's really time sensitive.
Yeah, it is. And what I would be saying in this phase for leaders to kind of click around this turnaround stage or this turnaround cycle is how do we build resilience? So
Yeah,
how do we build resilience in me as the leader, but also how does the leaders build resilience within their people? But I
yeah,
also think, and as soon as you said that crisis model, whenever I'm working with organizations, when they are in this stage, that crisis cycle is how do I make quality and informed decisions fast?
yeah,
Right? So,
yeah,
so often I find is this is a good quality as leaders to really develop their decision-making skills. So what models can they use? What there's a great decide model out there for leaders as well, helps them navigate how do they make some of those decisions, but also build resilience because this can be the tough. This can be, I think Daniel talks about this, and I know Tony Robbins does. This is kind of the winter of the business, isn't it? When things are just
oh,
that little bit harder.
yeah, and I think you've nailed it where you say you've got to do quality informed decisions fast, and
Yes,
because it is time sensitive.
yes,
Right? And you've got to really weigh up the implications of if you delay and if you don't make changes, right? So if this is sort of changes would be, yeah, it'd be nice to do these things. Change has to happen over here, right?
yes, yes,
It's not change is necessary. It's not arbitrary. It's or a nice to have. It's change has to happen. So I put out my book just recently called How Money Flows Through a Business. And in this non-executive directors meeting I was in, I'm looking at the management accounts and I can see, guys, you need to change this. If we're still talking about this in 30 days' time, you guys are in trouble.
yeah,
Right. So we were sort of that was just on a financial thing. So if we get there, right? Okay. In a
we can
sense,
get through them.
turn around up to if we went up from turnaround up to sale or scale, right? In a sense, I'll talk about this one up here first. If you're in a scaling sale and you're somewhere in that top level, you're really in an opportunities
Yep, great.
cycle, right? Where you're going, wow, yeah, um, this is we can make hay here. It's a different thing leading an opportunity. What sort of person do you have to be to lead opportunities to find them? You're tapping into that visionary future pacing that you mentioned over here. The issue that you've got over here is you're in an exit cycle
Yes,
because you've actually decided, okay, we need to wrap this up. We need to get out of this, right? And
yes, in a
so
good way,
the
in a good way.
yeah, so there's two ways to exit. Exit is an option up here. Up here, this is a good exit where you scale it up and then sell it. You've got a startup and you sell it. You've got something that's working, you sell it. And I would probably say this is a bad exit
Yeah,
down here,
of course.
where we
And
didn't turn it around, we couldn't realign it, and we're going to exit. So you're either going to exit insolvent or you're going to exit with a very unhappy outcome, if you know what I mean. But in this one, if exit cycle, you're either going to go up that way or you're going to go down that way.
yeah, so do you know what I think when I think about leaders in this, and it's really interesting. It's great that you've got this visual because I think, and I was only just talking about it with a leader the other day, is that as we evolve as leaders and we go through different stages or different cycles or different challenges, we need to be able to pull on those competencies, those 26, 25 competencies or qualities and go, right, I'm going through this stage. What quality do I need to be strong in? And what qualities can I be weaker in, right? Or delegate out. So in this stage here, this scale or sale, to me, it's kind of this, it's that visionary. So it touches on that startup stage again. But I think what's really important for leaders in this stage is to have clarity around strategy. So really clear on strategy and really clear on culture. I know so many businesses now that when they do their due diligence, before they even look at the financials of the business, they look first at the culture. So, making sure that the culture's right, the visionary, it's real clear on the strategies, really helps them to scale much bigger or better than what they were as well. And I think, when I talk about strategies, it's important to mention I'm also talking about that vision, that mission, that purpose, and those values. So that kind of incorporates that part as well.
Yeah, most definitely. And you made 2 points there. One is that what are the competencies, but also to recognize what stage is the business in, where
Yeah. Or you as
what's
a
happening in
leader,
the business. Now, I wish it was as clean cut as, oh, we're in a 100% realignment mode, because as I say, I've been doing some non-executive director work with a couple of companies, and some part of it is a realignment. Part of it's working really well. Let's keep that going. Part of it needs realigning, and there are aspects that need to be turned around. So sometimes you've got to change your leadership. You've got to your leadership has to adapt to the issue that you're dealing with, almost.
Well, also agree totally, but also to the people you're dealing with, right? Because when you look at this is really an evolution or a change to the business. So some people, some people will come along that journey faster than others. There is the 5 stages of grief. There's also the Kubler-Ross change curve, who was designed and developed by the lady Patricia, I think her name is, Kubler-Ross, and she was a doctor.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you. And she created that 5 stages of grief, and she also created the Kubler-Ross change curve. And I think it's not just the people, but also the leaders, but also the business as well. It's complex, isn't it? Leadership and running businesses is complex. And that's why leaders, and I think we touched on this at the front, is that's why leaders need to be agile and adaptable and malleable to be able to really go, what does the business need of me right now? What type of leader do I need? What do I need to do to shift or change?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only point I wanted to make around this thing is that, again, I've run into people who are really good leaders who are struggling, and I think they often go, oh, they're struggling with. I think we've done that one.
Yeah.
I think the thing that they're struggling with is they introvert and go, oh, it must be something I'm not doing right. But what I'll say is, let's just set that aside for a moment, right? It's also the situation you're dealing with.
Yeah, the environment, isn't it? Right? We know that
the business
through
situation.
we know that our behaviors, our thoughts, our feelings are all not only internal, but also external, what's going on around us, which is, and I'm not plugging us by any way to the audience, but this is why having a coach or a mentor or a non-executive director to actually have that sounding board, because sometimes you're so in the thick of it that you actually can't see outside.
Well, and sometimes too, you've got to ask those tough questions. Like I was looking at you mentioned about people, which is really important in culture. And one of the companies that I was working with recently, the question I said is, XYZ is running interference on this realignment, right? Why is this person still working here?
Yes.
Now, I wasn't saying fire them. I just want to know, why is this person, what is that person doing as a leader that would allow that person to have that much influence, who's not even a stakeholder or a shareholder?
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. And yet they're having such a big influence on the finances of that business. I said, so why is this person still here?
Was that in the realign stage?
Yeah, yeah. And
And
and and the bit that this person was in charge of was the turnaround problem.
yeah, right. Yeah.
This person was running interference on a turnaround because they've got it set up the way they want.
Yes. And this is, as we talk about the realign stage, as I said, that is really that change management stage. So
Mm,
that's
mm,
when businesses should be really saying, right, who's on the bus? Who's off the
mm.
bus? Who should
Yeah.
be on the bus and who should be off the bus, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
this is a stage where we don't want detractors. We don't want people that actually don't see our vision or our
Mm,
strategy or our goals,
mm, mm.
because they become the deflectors. And I've seen cultures, toxic cultures, be created because of those
Yeah.
type of people, Andrew.
Yeah, yeah. So, I know we could chat about this
I know.
a lot more, and once we get started, we're going. But you're right. I just wanted. I found that when I'm talking to companies, I could go into a big long thing, a big long explanation. But I thought I'll just draw a little diagram, and then you can pick it. And I'm so surprised how people quickly identify, that's the situation, and it's like they're good leaders and instantly adapt because they say, oh, now I know what I need to do for this situation.
Yes.
And we then would coach on what is needed. Yeah.
Yes, and I think, if we overlap on this, so this is a framework, isn't it, really? Your startup phase, that's your framework of your
Yeah.
star. But then
Yeah.
what I would say to leaders is, now how do we apply that emotional intelligence to sit over it, right? The
Right.
self-awareness,
Yeah.
the self-management. How do I manage my own emotions? How am I aware of what's going on around me? How do I build and sustain relationships? That. So
Yeah.
to me, I see emotional intelligence sitting over the top of that as a
Yeah.
framework to really
I,
guide and direct them.
I like the framework that you've got around the performance advisory group where it's lead yourself, lead others, and I think lead the
Lead
business, isn't
into
it?
the future.
Lead into the
Yeah.
future. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and
Yeah.
I think even if you were applied over your star framework, first we need to know how to lead ourselves, don't we, in that
That's
framework?
it.
Then we need to know how to lead our teams, and then we need to know how to lead into the future.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
That's
I've seen something very similar, but when I hear you talk about it, to me, the qualities just come out so easily, because I think if I'm in that stage, this is what I need to see from you as a leader.
yeah.
Sometimes they don't know that.
No, no, no. And as I say, the problem that diagram or that framework solves is I'm running into leaders who I think, hang on, these are good leaders, and then they're beating themselves up by going, oh, I'm a good leader, this shouldn't be happening. But I said, no, you're a good leader, but you're addressing your leadership competencies to the wrong situation, or
Yeah.
you haven't recognized the situation that your competencies now require.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I
And so
love it.
and people get it really quickly. Oh yeah, of course, we're in a turnaround mode. Yeah, great.
Yes, because now they know what tool to pull out of
You've
their
got it.
toolbox.
You've
Because,
got it.
oh, right,
Yeah.
okay, I need to be visionary. What do I need to do as a visionary leader? What do I need to do as a change transformational leader? All of those types of things.
Mm, mm.
I think it's really good for the audience to be thinking about, is there a shift that I need to make? And also, one of the things that I'm really big on is getting leaders to stop every single week and having thinking time. What is working? What isn't? What do they need to
Mm.
change, and what do they need to do differently? And if
Yeah,
they do that, then they start to actually see some of those stages, as opposed to being reactive in those
yeah.
stages.
Well, for me, I call this model the leadership remit,
Mm.
right? So what's the remit of this situation? And it's dependent on you identifying, well, what is the situation I'm dealing with? What's the remit of that situation from a leadership perspective? Because once you've got it, then you go, most people I work with know how to, yep, now I know I'm doing a realignment. Boom, that's really clear how I now, and you made it nice and clear. We're in recovery, change management is our tool. We're trying to make a transformation here. We're going from A to B. The ADCAR model might kick in.
Yes,
There's a
yes.
lot of tools that you are at your disposal once you know the situation you're in. Yeah,
Yes, exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely amazing having a chat with you again, Andrew. I'm
yeah.
looking forward. We've only got a couple more sessions, maybe one or two more sessions before we finish up the
Yeah.
year.
I know. And you've got November's your world domination plan, isn't it?
I know, I know,
You're
I
going
am
on the
so
world
looking
domination
forward.
road trip.
World Domination Road Trip. I'm so looking forward to traveling around the country,
Yeah,
really partnering with Colonial First State, which is a massive superannuation company here in
yeah,
Australia,
yeah,
and
yeah,
helping their financial planners and their network to be able to
yeah,
have quality, meaningful conversations with clients and apply
yeah,
similar frameworks to this, but obviously within the
yeah,
financial planning industry, and overlapping it with that emotional intelligence. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we have
yeah.
Christmas. Who would have thought? Come up so fast.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, listen, I just wanted to mention one last thing before we go off on this topic. The framework that you've seen there, I wish I'd invented it. I've got parts of it, right, but I've added a lot to it, and I've added a couple of other features that in a model that for me wasn't workable with
Yes.
what I was seeing on the ground with companies,
Yeah.
working face to face with companies. So some people say, "Oh, I recognise that." You've probably recognised part of it. The bits
Yes.
you've recognised, yeah, that's out there in the ethos. Go look for it, most certainly. But I've added stuff that's not in those small frameworks. So
Yes. I love it.
yeah, I
I
just
love it.
want to be clear.
Well, I think also what happens as you continue on in working with clients, you do refine frameworks, don't you?
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wonderful. So great
Well,
to speak to you again, Andrew. And I look
yeah,
forward to seeing you
likewise.
in a couple of weeks' time.
Before Christmas.